Hi friends, welcome back to my channel, A Little Geek, A Little Chic. I'm here today to talk to you about my favorite books I read in 2020. So grab yourself your beverage of choice and let's talk books. Let me start this video by saying I'm sorry about the glare that you might see in my glasses. It's the problem you have when you live in a climate where it's dark at like 4 o'clock in the afternoon. You get home from work, you want to film. You kind of got to deal with the lights you have, and this is the lights we have. So I am doing the best I can, but my eyes are a little bit sore today, so I am definitely going to wear my glasses for the video. Some days I just take them off so we don't have to deal, but today is glasses day. So, as I said, I read quite a few books this year, actually. I think I'm close to 50. I have 5 top favorites and 5 honorable mentions. So, in no particular order for the honorable mentions, we are going to start with those. And I'm going to start with The Billionaire Murders. The Billionaire Murders is a book, true crime book, set in Canada, Ontario, I believe. And it's about the Sherman family. So Mr. Sherman and his wife were found dead and murdered by the real estate agent selling their house. Yeah. And the book is told so well. It's terrifying. It chills you to the core. Just the way they were found too, and to know that person with that mentality is still out there is terrifying. Now, to give you a little backstory, Mr. Sherman was involved with a non-branded prescription drug company. I believe he was a founder, and they basically create, like Ritalin is the brand name, so they'll create the alternative option, the no-name brand of that product, or, Viagra, because for one that everybody knows and sees the commercials about, they create the non-brand name option. So they are extremely wealthy, and they had their family, and they had some family drama, and they had some business drama, and then they turn up dead. So at the end of the book, which is it's a true crime, so it's no spoilers. The house is actually set to be demolished. So I'm pretty sure that happened, but if not, it was stopped like right when this book was ready to come out. But their investigation is ongoing, and some new evidence has come to light. So if you're like me and you read these, and then all of a sudden later you hear that there's new evidence and new information about the crime, you're super invested. So this book was great. It had me from start to finish, and I highly recommend you pick it up. If you are into true crime, it's a gripping one. It's also really nice if you're Canadian to get some Canadian true crime, because a lot of the true crime we read or hear about is American. So it was nice to get a Canadian feel true crime novel. The next book on my list is a graphic novel, and it had me from page 1. It is called A Quiet Girl in a Noisy World. This graphic novel, you guys, is everything. So if you're like me and you like to read and you like your private time and your quiet time, this character is for you. So she is introverted, kind of like we all in the bookish community are a little bit. We can be extroverted too if we have to be, but we also just like to recharge and have our own private, quiet time. And that is this character's strong point. She is fantastic. The graphics are great, but the story is just perfect. The character is perfect, and it's exactly the way I feel a lot of the time. I actually recommended that my friend Kim from Bookshelf Bunny pick it up, and I believe she did, and she liked it also. And it's just true to the core. So I highly recommend you pick it up if you haven't read it already. Book number 3 on the list is One by One by Ruth Ware. Ruth Ware's book, One by One, had me from the start. The startup company that it talks about, a group of people who are involved with a startup app company who decide to go to a ski resort to discuss the impending sale of the app. Half of the board wants to sell and half does not. So we have your board and your swing vote, who no longer works at the company, but because she has shares, she's at this chalet as well. And then you have the people who work at the chalet. And everybody's got a backstory and everybody's got something going on that's not quite right, or a mystery of their own that we find out about during it. There's a lot of corporate talk and a lot of businessy kind of talk you might not be interested in, but I highly recommend this book. It's so good. And the ending had me. Like, it was great. The ending was fantastic. It was graphic. It was descriptive. It was disgusting at some points. And Ruth Ware just delivered. And I know this book has gotten a lot of mixed reviews and a lot of mixed feelings on this book, but I personally am in the loved this book people category. So if you liked Ruth Ware's other books, it's not quite like them. It's a little bit different. It reads kind of like an Agatha Christie, but I think that you will enjoy it. Her writing style is the same, but I think she delves a little bit harder and is a little bit more graphic. And she just had me on this one. This is a great book. I buddy read this one with Kim from Bookshelf Bunny, and I think we both really enjoyed it and didn't really see where some of this was coming. Kind of saw one of the twists, but I didn't see how extreme it would get at the end of the book. Like, when I find out pretty early, like 3/4 of the way through the book, who the person is and what the issue is and why this is happening. But then there's another like quarter of the book where you're with that person and just like there's so much that goes on in that section that I really enjoyed personally. So this one is on my honorable mentions. The next book that made my honorable mentions is Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires by Grady Hendrix. This book surprised me. The nostalgic 80s, 90s vibes, 70s, 80s vibes really had me. This down south, southern comfort feel. I enjoyed this writing. It was graphic. It is definitely a horror, but it is also funny at points, eerie, twisted, and I was here for every second of it. At some points I was a little bit turned off by some of the descriptions and but then I had to regain myself and be like, you're reading a horror. It's going to happen. This is what we're expecting, because you don't feel that way about the characters at the beginning and you don't know where this is going. And it's got some twists and it's slightly paranormal. Yeah, the main character, basically what happens is she moves to a small town. She's trying to feel like she's more involved. So she joins a book club where they tell the husbands that they are reading, I believe, biblical Bible study types of literature. And they're actually reading true crime novels. Like, how fantastic is that? So they're reading all this, and so the husbands find out, and they think that, you know, there's this person of interest in town that they think is causing children and people to go disappear, but they can't really put two and two together, and why all this stuff started happening when this person moved to town, all this weird thing that's happening. But the husbands kind of write them off because of their true crime book club, thinking that they're just bored housewives looking for something to do. And some of the husbands had a problem with their sexism, but then I had to remind myself that it is set in a time in the South, and this is how that was represented, and that's how women were talked about and treated, and in some areas still are. So it's not unrealistic, and when you put that in perspective as part of the book, it's really, really hits home, and it's a good book. The writing is fantastic. I read through this so fast, and I highly recommend this. This is a good one to pick up spooky season. My final honorable mention is have it on my shelf over here. The Flat Share by Beth O'Leary. You guys, I love this book so much. I agree that the main character, the male main character, is a bit flat. He doesn't have much personality until close to the end, where they start to get into the relationship that ensues. So what the premise is Tiffy, she has to rent this flat. And Leon lives at this flat and he's renting it, but he needs the flat during the day because he is a nighttime nurse at like a ward for children and people, a palliative care type ward. So it's, what a career. So his personality, when you think of it that way, kind of makes sense because he's kind of cold to all that. He's super nice to the patients and such a great guy, but he kind of turns it off internally because he doesn't want to get hurt constantly with what he deals with at work. So Tiffy sees an ad and she's basically right out of a breakup and her friends are worried about her, but she doesn't want to sleep on her friend's couch anymore. So she answers this ad to rent an apartment or share a flat, as they're called. And she takes it during the evening and she sleeps there. And he takes it during the day when she's at work. So it's the perfect combination for them to trade off. And they leave each other notes and like leftovers in the fridge and stuff like that. And it is just adorable. And it just it escalates to relationship ensuing, which is why it's like a romance novel. And I am here for it. They are a perfect couple for each other in the end. And Leon's character really kind of comes around in the end. And you really I started to like him quite a bit, even though at the beginning I didn't think I would. The next 5 books are my top 5 of 2020, starting with Permanent Record by Edward Snowden. Wow, this guy was a prodigal son? A boy genius, we'll say, because I can't apparently pronounce the other word right now. It's gone. And he's like Sheldon from Big Bang Theory. The brain that this guy has and the things that he can decode and figure out. He's getting calls from the FBI and NASA as a youth, as like a 12-year-old boy who's just coding on his home computer, and they figure out that he's getting into the system, and they call him and figure out, okay, well, how'd you get in there? And he explains it to them and where they're lacking and all this stuff. And they offer him a job. And he's like, well, I'll have to check with my parents because I'm only like 12. And they laugh because it's like, frick, a 12-year-old got into our systems? As obviously, go a few years down the road and he is responsible for exposing the U.S. government and other governments for spying on, using technology to spy on their people. Even when they're not actually supposed to be. It's not like they are basically recording everything. And it is crazy. And he tells you everything he learned, how he got stuck in Russia, and how Russia wanted him to help them out in their cause. And he said no. And they said, fine, you can sit around then. Because we're not, like, we can either help you get out if you help us. And he declined. So he's basically just like a political refugee somewhere, and you never really know quite where he is. And the way he gets around, when he finally submitted and sent all of his information that he'd gathered, the way he gets around them locating him is phenomenal. If you guys don't know about Edward Snowden, definitely pick up this book. You will not be sorry. It is one of the best biographies I have ever read, and I was entranced. He think it's told by himself on the audiobook. So I would recommend, whenever I read biographies and true crime, like real stories, I like to hear it told by the people if possible. Just gives a little bit more of a human touch to the book, and I highly recommend it. It was phenomenal. I listened to this book. It was a long one, like 2 or 3 days. I'm still entranced by his story, and I'm not going to say too much about it because if you're not familiar, you're going to want to hear it from him. But yeah, he is still a political a prisoner of wherever he's hiding out because he can't come back to the States without fear of being arrested. So he, I believe, the U.S. was looking to pardon him. The president was looking to pardon him as part of his last thing in office. And I believe he has said no, and he wants someone else to be pardoned first. So that's just what kind of a great guy he is. So I am super intrigued to see how his story plays out, because it's not over yet. He's still alive. He's still out there. And if he does get pardoned and if he comes back to the States, or what happens to him from here. That's book 5. Book 4 on my list is Tweet Cute by Emma Lord. This is about a boy named Jack and a girl named Pepper. That's right, Pepper Jack. And their families own rival food companies. Jack's family owns a bistro, a small family bistro that serves soup, sandwiches, and grilled cheeses. And Pepper's family owns a burger chain, a large burger chain. And they have recently added grilled cheese to the menu. Now, the grilled cheese recipe is strikingly similar to the one that Jack's family sells. And Jack's family sold it their whole life. And it involves grandparents and their backstory. And that's how long they've had this grilled cheese recipe. How did the burger icons, like tycoons, get the recipe? To a T, exactly the same. That's what Pepper wants to know. That's what Jack wants to know. And in the midst of it, these two go to school together, and they butt heads, and a Twitter war ensues between the two of them because, you know, it is 2020. It's what happens, and it is adorable. I am here for it. The family dynamic is great. Pepper also has her and her sister have a blog where they post different recipes, like dessert recipes, and all of them sound delicious. And I would really love to get my hands on it, especially the monster cake in this. But yeah, so highly, highly recommend you pick this book up if you're in for something light and fluffy and just cute and overall feel good. It's a good summer read. It's a YA fiction, and it's a good summer read. The next book, book number 3 in my countdown to my top books of 2020, is Lock Every Door by Riley Sager. This is the first Riley Sager novel I took in. I actually listened to it on audiobook, and I was stuck from page 1. It is crazy. So this girl's down on her luck. She's sick of being, like, sounds like the Flash here, of being a menace on her friends and living on their couch, basically. And she's ready to try to figure out, she got out of a bad relationship, and now she's by herself, and she's trying to figure herself out and her life out, and she can't couch surf anymore. So she's searching the want ads for somewhere to stay or a job, and she comes across both. Somewhere to stay, and they pay you. And it's at the most iconic building in New York that she's dreamed of seeing and living in since she was a child. But it's not all that it seems. She's not allowed to have guests. She always has to be there every night. She locks every door, and you can't talk to anyone else who lives there. And you get paid a ridiculous amount of money. So, what's the secret at this place? I can't tell you too much because the twist blew my mind, and I was hooked. After reading this book, you guys, I read every other of Riley Sager's backlist. I read every single book this year. It was a toss-up between this one and Home Before Dark. I really liked that one too, but this one had me from the very first chapter. I was hooked. I was intrigued. I did not see that twist coming at all, and what a great thriller novel. If you're looking for a good thriller, mystery thriller novel, Riley Sager has a ton of them. And I believe she's got a new book coming out in 2021. I can't remember what it's called, but watch for that one on my most anticipated books. Book number 2 is Becoming by Michelle Obama. I listened to this one on audiobook. Like I said, I like to listen to biographies, and Michelle Obama has my heart. The way she is eloquent, she has a voice that you can just listen to. She delivers her story to perfection. Starting from, the dog is going to come join us for this video. Starting from when her and Barack Obama were dating and like how they met, to like what she did before she was first lady, and all of her background, her education, her jobs leading up to that point, and then their romance and becoming first lady and their time in the White House. And it is fantastic. I loved hearing it from her. I loved hearing how she was raising her kids, trying to keep them honest and wholesome, even though they were living in the most prestigious home in America, and trying to keep them more down to earth. And the things and the projects she developed when she was in the White House as the First Lady were fantastic. And let's just be honest, her style was something to rival Mrs. Kennedy. It's just Jackie Kennedy. It is fantastic. All of her outfits were gorgeous. Her dresses were brilliant, and they weren't over the top. They weren't unattainable. You felt like you could just be friends with her, and it is a great, great biography. Listen to it if you can, because her voice takes it to a whole nother level. And the number 1 book I read in 2020 is Beach Read by Emily Henry. What this is a story of 2 authors who both are living at these beach houses. January, our female main character, she has moved into this house, this beach house, after the passing of her father. But she's also found out some things about her father that she didn't know, and has shaken her world. And she's not even sure if she wants to be there. And she's dealing with a whole bunch of internal demons and internal struggles that she needs to get past in order to keep writing, because she's got a book due to a publisher and she doesn't even know where to start. Augustus? Is it Augustus? Yes. Everett. Love him from the start. He is sarcastic. He's cynical. He's funny. And he is kind of shut off. He is a historical fiction writer, and he is also trying to just get to this next big book. And they both are at this small town, and they know each other from back in their days in college. And they were he said some things about her writing, and she took it to heart. And ever since then, she's had like a wall up to him. And he knows who she is, and she knows who he is. And they are just the best of neighbors to watch. And they are bickering, and it's hilarious. And they're friends. And they decide to take on each other's books. She's going to write a historical fiction, and he's going to write a romance novel. And the first one to get their book published or get an offer wins. And so then they have to promote each other's book. Whoever wins gets their book promoted by the other person. So, and they are helping each other by writing, they're going on writing dates basically, on teaching each other how to write their types of book, that they're going to learn how to write a historical fiction. He's going to show her things that he's using as tools to write, and then she's going to take him and show him stuff that she uses as a tool to write her romance novels. And it is just great. I thought this was going to be a warm and fluffy, lighthearted read, and I was wrong, because it deals with a lot of deep stuff. Also, did I cry during this book? Yes. Did I love this book? Yes. Did it end perfectly? Yes. Is she coming out with another book in 2021? Yes. Am I buying it? 100% yes. So this author is fabulous. I believe she's got a backlist of books. I'm going to have to check into that, because if she does, I'm going to want to read them. So that's it for my top 5 of 2020 and 5 honorable mentions. Let me know what your top read of 2020 was. And did you read more than you did in previous years or less? The pandemic affected everybody differently. Some people read barely anything because there's so much time to do nothing that's what everybody seemed to do. And I was guilty of that for a while, but then I picked it up and started reading again. So I read actually probably as much, if not more, than I normally do in a year. But I had a rough start. Started good January, and then March to May, it kind of took a dive. And that's why there's so many audiobooks, because that's how I kept taking in the content. So yeah, I highly recommend all of my books in my top 5 and my honorable mentions. And I hope you pick some of them up. If you do, let me know down below which ones, and give me a book emoji. Let's talk more books coming up real soon. Thank you for watching. Like and subscribe down below to see more videos from me. And don't forget to read a good book.